Hello, pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
8-a-bit Pod Smash.
Where gaming goes to grab a beer.
Oh, shoot. Mine's so far away.
Uh-oh. You gotta reach for it. Stretch.
Oh, hold on. Here's the tank.
I just pull a muscle.
Spill it
old
on my
man.
computer. I want to spill it on my computer.
Don't spill it on the computer either.
There we go.
We are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right. Tonight we are doing a follow-up to our discussion on Blizzard Entertainment from like 4 weeks ago. If you're listening to this, when you're listening to this, it'll probably have been 4 weeks ago when we actually did the original discussion. We did that one live. We are not doing this one live. A lot of stuff has happened in a month, and so we're going to cover everything up to the point that we are currently at. And we're also going to discuss some thoughts on some of the discussion and discourse that's been going around about it, and we're going to just kind of process it a little bit more. So it's an ongoing news story. I swear we've done like 5 or 6 episodes in this podcast dedicated entirely to Blizzard Entertainment. And
over the course of our 4 years? Maybe?
Yeah, we've done a lot. I don't think we've covered one single video game company as much as Blizzard, but there's very few video game companies that have been as newsworthy as Blizzard recently. And we tend to try to keep our news episodes to our news show. But every once in a while, it generates enough of a good discussion about the gaming industry at large that we like to cover it in the actual show, and that's what we're doing tonight. So we will get to all of that and more, but we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight, Termite?
Really quickly, we are your hosts.
Did we not cover that?
We didn't.
Oh.
It's the one thing we missed. I am Termite, and you are
Penguin.
And both of our names are Dan, so we go by our gamer tags.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Fun. If you don't know us by this point, then there's an episode we can point you to. So we can go back to our very first episode 0, where we talk all about what our podcast is. You know what? We should do a refresh of that. I think we could probably update that episode.
And then have 0.
like a point. Yeah. Would it be 0.2? 0.1?
It's not us unless it's 0.0.
Yeah,
we've already done episode 0.
I love that. 0.0. I love it.
All right. So what am I drinking? I am
on
work travel this week, and I am in Norfolk, Virginia, and I didn't know this until today that Smart Mouth is here, and we have had numerous Smart Mouth beers on the show. So I thought it was a priority for me to get there and check out some of the beers they had and bring something back. What I didn't know was the bartender had a Smart Mouth t-shirt on with a video game controller on their sleeve. So I said, "Hey, do you guys have games here? Like, what's going on with the controller on your sleeve?" And they said, "No, we have a beer called Game On. And it's one of our staple beers, and we have it all the time." And I was like, I've never heard of this before.
That's awesome.
I've seen Smart Mouth in the stores. I've never seen Game On. So I have to buy this beer, knowing I was recording tonight, and I was going to drink it on the show. So that's what I'm drinking tonight.
Awesome.
Game On, India Pale Ale.
Is it in a crowler, or did you actually get like a...
No, they just have cans like you would see in the store. Yeah, which I guess we just don't
get. Too bad that it's an IPA.
Oh, well, it's my favorite style of beer, so I'll get to enjoy it, and you can just want but they don't distribute it in our area.
I am. Touche.
But
well,
of
that's
course,
awesome.
as Smart Mouth tradition, it has all of the cans are hilarious and have tons of verbiage on them, so I have to read the can.
Sure.
And it's like a paragraph. So take your beer game to the next level with Game On IPA, a 3-hit combo of tropical fruit aromas, juicy citrus flavor, and a smooth finish that won't sideline your palate, the hero, in our quest for IPA perfection. This beer breaks rules and wins hearts, so crack it open, hit start, and get your game on at your local or at your favorite single or multiplayer events. And on the can has like some fermenters, pictures, a Tetramino, a Mario question mark block, and it has the up, down, left, right, BA code. It also has like a Pac-Man fruit and a snitch from Harry Potter, wildly enough.
Interesting.
And a whole bunch of like science things.
Oh, because it's a game. Quidditch is a game, so Game On. Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's a surfboard here, there's a hockey stick, and like I said, like there's a molecular structure of beer on here. It's pretty cool. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% fermentation.
That's awesome. I love that like a lot of the guys who are making beer and running these businesses are people our age that grew up playing video games, and so you have some of that gamer culture is entwined. Not everywhere. It's not ubiquitous by any stretch of the imagination, but you have beers named things like Falcon Punch and stuff like that, which I just find ultimately amusing every time I run across a great, well-named beer. Excuse me. I am drinking a mixed drink, actually, tonight.
Ooh, do tell.
It is 1 part Simply lemonade, from the store. You could probably get any lemonade that you prefer, but we like Simply here in our house. So 1 part Simply lemonade and 1 part double shot of Hornitos tequila, not vodka. Hornitos tequila. Yeah. This is the bottle that I earned in correctly predicting the date of my daughter, not the date, but the time of my daughter, the month of my daughter's birth. That's what I'm trying to say. I predicted that she would be born in August, and it was enough of a long shot because August would have been late, and she was late. So my brother-in-law and I made a bet. He thought she was going to be born on 4th of July. He missed that by a long shot, and I was convinced she was going to be born in August and have an August baby, and so we made that bet, and I won. So she was born at 5:30 a.m. on August 1st. So
just barely.
Barely I won it, but I won it. As soon as midnight passed, I believe, my wife was in labor, and as soon as midnight passed that day, we were at the hospital at that point, and I text him and I go, I win! You owe me a bottle of tequila.
Nice.
So yes, he bought me a bottle.
Can't go wrong with Hornitos is money.
Yeah, and this is the 100% agave, just basic version of Hornitos, and it's fantastic. So I love mixing it with limeade or lemonade, but this is kind of I don't know what you would call this. I just call it a margarita, even though it's not. But it's close enough in flavor. It's spiked lemonade, I guess, but it's great. It's really, I love Hornitos, so you can't go wrong with that. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, in honor of my daughter and my prescience in predicting her birthday. What do you want to talk about? It's been a hot second since you and I have properly talked on anything other than Facebook. So since
it's been a while
since I've been busy being a parent twice. So what's going on?
Wow. My wife and I celebrated our anniversary, and we took an overnight trip. This would be my favorite thing, so I probably don't want to talk about that too much because I'll spoil it. But cool. That has been fun. I've been working my way through Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Yes, Quinn.
And I think I'm on the last leg of that. I just pulled, spoiler alert, a sword out of a tree, which... Nice. It means nothing if you don't know the game, but if you're in the middle of the game, it might mean something, but it's not that big of a spoiler, so you'll be fine.
You pulled a sword out of a tree. Amazing.
Yep. Yes. That's about where I am in the story, so there's not a lot left after that.
What do you think? What do you think of it? What are your impressions?
I really didn't understand. I was frustrated by the puzzle solving. I did not like having to walk through certain gates and certain combinations to figure out what's going on. I told you
about that, though. When I first played it, I was like, it's perception-based puzzles, which is perfect for a game about psychosis because it's all about perception.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. But I think what I love more is the voices and the dialogue that's going on because
freaking nuts.
There's so much who do you listen to, who do you believe, what ends up being reality and who doesn't, and there's good and bad, and there's all these influences, and you can see Senua's struggle throughout the whole experience. I'm playing it on easy because I don't want to lose, and I'm using a walkthrough because I don't want to get stuck.
Sure.
And I'm enjoying the story and the dialogue, and that's what I want out of the game. There's so many different layers, I think, here that if you wanted to play without a walkthrough and struggle through the puzzles on your own, there's a whole lot of awesome value in
I did that. I did it. That's how I did it. And I had to go to platinum it. I had to go back and get the two little sigils I missed or whatever. Fortunately, they have.
That's not going to happen.
Fortunately, I believe they have a chapter select, so I was able to get it pretty fast.
Nice.
But nevertheless, that's how I want. At the time, I wasn't really even a big trophy hunter when I first played it. I was just experiencing it, and that is a good way to play it if that's what you're into. Mm-hmm. Or if you're not a trophy hunter, that's a great way to do it. It's just go in blind and enjoy the ride.
And great. There's this mechanic where if you die, your arm gets overtaken by a sickness, and I guess your whole body does. So if you keep dying, you actually do have to start over entirely from the beginning.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that kind of adds tension to all of the fights, but I'm playing it on easy, so I don't really die, and it's fine. I just don't want to deal with that. I don't have time. I don't have time to play this game.
I played it on. I think I played it on normal, and I never had to start from the beginning.
Yeah. I died
it's pretty forgiving. It's a pretty forgiving mechanic. I don't know if it gets fewer times on hard or something like that, but there were points where I died multiple times and still didn't have to start over. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good, and I'm glad that it's less than 10 hours if you're playing it the way that I am, because that's about the level of commitment I can apply to things at the moment. My wife is actively job searching and had an interview in Charlottesville.
Yes.
We traveled to Charlottesville to look at some places to live on Sunday, and we stopped at Crozet Pizza, and it was amazing. And there's all this stuff going on in our life right now that is distracting me from video games because our evenings are spent kind of discussing the future of our life and what we're going to do. And no decisions have been made because we don't have an offer letter in any inbox. So we're still kind of just coasting at the moment. And that's fine. That's what we're going to do. Everything's fine. I've made work plans all the way through October and later on than that. So those will all be made. All of those work plans will be done. I will fulfill those commitments. And yeah, so that's kind of my life in a nutshell at the moment.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, of just adjusting, continuing to adjust to babies. It's going well though. I mean, she's sleeping pretty well. She's surpassed her birth weight already, which is, with our son, he was a shrimp for a long time and struggled. He was like 3 percentile in his third percentile in his weight or something like that for a while. And not my daughter. No, she's doing fine. She's chugging right along. She was 7 pounds 15 ounces when she was born, dropped down to I think 7 pounds 1 ounce. And now she's 8 pounds. 2 weeks later, she's 8 pounds and 6 ounces. So wow. She's already gained her weight back and more.
Yeah.
So she's a rock star. She's sleeping for long stretches in the night, which is great for me and my wife. We've basically been able to set up the same arrangement that we had with my son, which is like I take the first shift and stay up late while she goes to bed early. And then she, burns the midnight oil, feeds her a couple times at night, and then feeds her in the first thing in the morning. And so both of us get like 6 hours of sleep. Hers is broken up a little bit, but it's due to the nature of having to, breastfeed the baby. Mm. So it's going well, yeah. But I mean, it's going well. My family, like I said, I talked about last week. My family was here, and they did so much for us. They steam cleaned our floor, our carpets. My dad power washed the house and the deck. And then they stained it. Yeah. My sister scrubbed our kitchen floors and got on her hands and knees and just scrubbed our floors. They cleaned our toilets. Like they did.
That's amazing.
So much. Like the house is cleaner than I think it's ever been.
That's awesome.
It's great. Yeah. So and the best part was I barely had to do any help with it. Like I barely had to help at all. Yes. And I got to kick with it. They would watch me take my kid out and play with him, and I'd kick back and play Dark Souls. So that's my gaming update. Is I've platinumed Dark Souls.
Yay!
Oh man, I'm a fan of Souls-likes now, of course, which is why I played it. I can see why this game was a masterpiece. Like it does so many things so well, and I'm sitting there playing it the whole time, and I'm like, man, this game came out in like 2012 or 2011, like almost a decade ago, and it really set the tone for like the next 10 years of gaming, and continues to do so. Like there are so many games that I'm just like, they draw influence from this. Like this game really has defined a lot of this era of gaming. And so, yeah, I enjoyed the heck out of it, the mess out of it, and I still think Bloodborne's better, personally, is my personal opinion. It's still my favorite, but I can definitely see why Dark Souls is considered a masterpiece. And by the time, it's funny because I always hit a point in some of those games where I'm like, I look ahead and I'm like, man, I have so much left to do to platinum this game, and I kind of start to get burned out, and I think to myself, maybe I won't platinum it. Maybe I'll just move on to Dark Souls 2 or 3 and not platinum it. Then by the time I got to the end of it and was like on the final stretch about to platinum it, I'm like, I'm going to miss this game.
So you keep doing it. You keep going.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking a break. I know that I could very easily see myself, even though these are great games, I could very easily see myself burning out if I really did try to binge all 3 of them in a row. So I'm taking a palate cleanser, I call it. I've been playing Outriders with my buddy Justin, which is finally clicking for me. Like I'm really enjoying Outriders.
Yeah. I'm
really glad I bought it I'm really glad I waited till they fixed out some of the bugs and then also grabbed it on sale. But it's at a really good spot right now and I'm having a blast. And then I am also I'm about to fire up Astral Chain as my single player game. Just play my way through that. And I also purchased, as of today, I grabbed the Mass Effect Legendary Collection. Yeah. So that's going to pop itself on my list at some point as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's my gaming, and that's what I've been doing, and just having a good time. We finally, again, my family cleared out, so we're finally kind of at a point where we're now adjusting to what it looks like to be a family of 4 and live with the reality of a 2-year-old and a newborn and what that's going to look like and how that's going to work. The only things we haven't added to the mix yet are work again. So that's coming in a couple weeks. Yep. Mm-hmm. Luckily, my wife's starting before I am. So that means she'll be able to ease into her schedule and then I'll be able to ease in right. So we're like adding changes 1 week at a time as opposed to like all at once. So I think I do think it'll kind of hopefully it'll ease into it. So yeah, so that's me. So yeah, fun, exciting developments in life are our favorite things, but also
doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Favorite things. Speaking of which, we knocked that song off of a show called Master of None. Have you finished season 3?
No, my wife and I got really depressed after watching the first episode.
I know, isn't it so heavy?
So hard.
Oh my gosh, it doesn't get any better. All right, it doesn't lighten up. Like it's that heavy throughout the whole thing. It highlights so much though. It's so good. It's just like so much advocacy for a voice that commonly gets shut out. It's great.
I'll check it. I might have to check it out on my own. I might not be
Yeah.
able to watch it with my wife because I think she's having a hard time with it. So,
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
of course, she was
It's
also
a whole lot.
Well, I don't know if postpartum is worse than pregnancy in regards to hormones. Maybe I'll just
Right.
avoid it altogether with her and just watch it by myself. That's probably
yeah,
a wise
there's
call,
that.
I think, at this point.
Mm.
All right. So, sorry. Is that your favorite thing, or
No,
were you just
not at
mentioning
all.
it?
I just
Gotcha,
mentioned
okay.
it.
Why don't
Remembered
you?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you start favorite things?
Yeah, I started to talk about it already, but I celebrated my anniversary with my wife. It's our 12th anniversary, and we went to a vineyard in Virginia called the Barbersville Vineyard and Winery, and we got reservations for a nice dinner. And my parents kept the kids overnight, and it was a one-night escape. And we got down there, and we enjoyed a 4-course dinner with wine pairings on each one, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And we didn't have to drive anywhere, so we stayed in the inn there on site. And my favorite actual thing from this whole event, you would think it would be the absolutely amazing wine or the incredible food that we ate that's like Italy, Italian inspired. Like the chef came from Italy and makes homemade everything, including the pasta from scratch on site. And that was absolutely incredible. No, my favorite thing was actually the morning after having no one needing anything from me. We slept in.
Oh, yeah.
We enjoyed coffee. There was only one K-cup for each of us, so we enjoyed tea afterward to keep it going. Wow. And we sat outside, and we sat inside, we sat in bed. Like it took us like 3 hours to move out, like to get from out of bed to checking out. And it was amazing. This cottage that we stayed in is a very small, quaint little house. It was actually a suite in a house that had no TV and no internet. There's literally no screen in the house. And of course we had cell phone service, so like we were on our phones, but not like we normally would be. It was just so refreshing. There was coffee table books. We like flipped through together while sipping wine. Came with a complimentary cheese plate. So it was just all a really cool, like slow down for, I guess it was 24 hours that we were there. It was absolutely amazing. So that was my favorite thing this week by far. Just not having things needed from me is it's awesome.
Dude, yeah, we had a similar thing before. In this case, before our daughter was born, we went to a hotel, and I love that feeling of just waking up and be like, I don't need to attend to a human right now.
Nothing. You don't have to attend to anyone.
There's a lot of joy in parenting. There's a lot of great things about, we could do a whole podcast on just how great parenting is and how surprising I think I found parenting to be fulfilling. That said, you need to get away every once in a while and be a human. Like, you're more than just a parent. You need to be a human. And there is the fun thing about parenting is there's an end goal, right? Like, after 18 years, if those little effers can't get out of the house on their own, like...
We are a family-friendly podcast.
You did something wrong, right? So, and you failed at parenting. Not failed. No, I'm not digging any parents out there who may. I'm just saying that, like, there's an end goal. Like, eventually, the kids move out. They become adults. They move out, and then you get to be just a married couple again. So, yeah, I think it's great that you guys do that kind of thing and prioritize getting away as a couple and not having to be responsible. And even better that you have a community, in this case, family, that enables that. So, it's awesome.
So much work.
I know. I'm looking forward to the next time we could do it.
Yes.
My wife, I was like, hey, my daughter took a bottle today, and I was like, she took a bottle. You know what that means? It means you could just like pump, or if she takes formula, we could just like leave her home with someone who can feed her formula, and then we can get the heck out of Dodge. Yeah. Oh man. All right, cool. So my favorite thing, I mean, there's been a lot of great things this week. Again, with my family cleaning my house and all that stuff. That's a pretty big favorite thing. But there's one thing that stands out. And once again, I am very pleased that I took advantage of the 6-month free trial to Apple TV. I was a little annoyed at just the very existence of Apple TV when it first came out, because another freaking streaming service.
Yep.
That's just, again, and I still don't love the idea that it exists for that reason as well. But
it has like all these little plugins and like little extras you can add to your service.
Yeah, I hate
it's like
that.
Annoying. It's a whole umbrella of stuff.
But their actual content, their exclusive content or whatever, is actually pretty good. And we found another show on there that we love called Ted Lasso. And it's got Jason Sudeikis in it, and he plays a American football coach who gets hired to coach English football, which is American soccer, overseas, and he gets hired to coach a football team. And again, the quote twist from the first episode is that the woman who hired him, the owner of the team, she only hired him to spite her ex-husband by making the team fail. But like, he's like a really wholesome guy and is like doing his best to make the team like succeed. And it's Jason Sudeikis. He's great. So really good, like performances, really good, just writing and everything. Like it's fun to watch a show with a character who's so wholesome. Like he's just a really nice, genuine, heartfelt guy, and he's got his like complications and his character flaws, but like it's really fun to just see a character who's not conniving, not manipulative, not a scumbag, who's like a good person and trying to do right by his team and his circumstances. Really great show, loving
cool.
it.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about it.
Yeah, it's probably arguably the best show on that platform. I loved Mythic Quest. I like Dickinson.
That's the one I want to watch.
Dickinson's good. That's another good one. But the Ted Lasso so far is Macy and I we started it and have just been blasting through it whenever our son's been napping because it's been awesome. So, yep, that's my favorite thing, and I highly recommend you check it out, folks.
Yeah, sweet. Do it up.
All right, so that leads us to our final segment before our main topic, and that is DLC. DLC stands for downloadable content. It's a segment of our show where we have a fun discussion about video games that you wouldn't normally have. And it's meant to be kind of gimmicky, fun, and it was inspired by the age-old conversation of who would win in a fight, blank or blank. And so that's the nature of the DLC we're doing tonight is blank blank. In honor of the fact that we're talking about Blizzard and the fact that we're talking about Blizzard's foibles. Is foibles the right word? I don't know. I'm going to use it anyways.
Okay.
We wanted to I wanted to do deals. I wanted to do blank blank, but I wanted to highlight, since we're talking about Blizzard so much tonight, I wanted to highlight Blizzard alternatives, Blizzard competitors. So I want you to pick 2 characters from games that could be considered Blizzard alternatives. Ooh, so it could be Path of Exile, it could be Team Fortress, any number of Blizzard alternatives out there. You'll talk about what games they are and what they are alternatives to, when you say those characters. And then I will pick a competition, and we will discuss which one of those characters would win at that competition. So let me know when you are ready.
The protagonist from Torchlight.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's like the 4 classes or whatever that you could be.
Yes.
Did you have a class in particular from Torchlight?
I'm always going to go with the roguelite type of like fast damage dealer. But I don't know the Vanquisher, a ranged focus character with roguelike abilities. Perfect. That's
perfect.
Yep. So a Vanquisher from Torchlight.
I'm looking it up real quick. Vanquisher from Torchlight. Okay, that's 1. And that game is an alternative to what?
Diablo.
Yep, I knew that. I was just for the sake of that.
Oh, right. For us talking about it. Yes, that is a Diablo clone.
Nice. Do you have another one? If you don't, I have one in my back pocket. Okay.
Yeah, please.
So the Vanquisher from Torchlight, and I'm going to say the Spy from Team Fortress as a Overwatch competitor, as an Overwatch alternative.
Yeah, I didn't think about Team Fortress versus Overwatch, because Overwatch is not my world, because I never really got into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So those are the characters, and then the competition that I have chosen before I knew what the characters were that we were going to be competing against is a good old-fashioned game of badminton.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So, who would win, the Spy or the Vanquisher in the game of badminton?
The Spy, like, snipes, right?
Uh-huh. But so does the Vanquisher, it looks like. She looks like she's using the bow.
So they're both shooting the poppycock out of the air constantly, back and forth.
Mm-hmm. The Spy, I think, also had, like, subterfuge kind of abilities. Although I guess the same could be true for the Vanquisher. So I feel like they're just going tit for tat.
Yeah, it's like
blow
an even
for
match.
Blow here.
So which one would have faster reaction time? I would say the Vanquisher.
Probably. I'm going to go with the Spy, though, because the Spy is, like, sneaky and tricky as, like, part of his character. And I'm sure he would find a way to
let the poppycock
psychologically
barely touch the ground so that the Vanquisher is caught off guard,
thinking,
I got the point. And then nope, scoops,
boom,
and
gets it with his foot. Like kicks another little what do you call him?
And then
racket out of his foot and just beep bump, and there's like what? No, yeah, totally. Yep. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
That's probably it.
That's it. All right. So Spy versus Vanquisher.
It's good.
Team Fortress versus Torchlight. Who would win in a game of badminton? And we want to hear what your thoughts are, listeners, or if you have 2 other alternative Blizzard video game characters that you want to see and play against each other in badminton, We want to hear those thoughts and more. So Termite, where can the listeners share their DLC feedback if they have it?
You can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website where we have links to all of our social media outlets where you can provide us all the feedback you want. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Reddit. We also have a link to our Discord server and all of our show notes. You can contact us anywhere. We are also live on most Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. Monday, we usually have a news show running through the week's video game news, although that has been hit or miss given our life circumstances of both work travel and new babies. So bear with us. But also Wednesday evenings, which is much more consistent at 8 p.m., where we play a game that we're digging over at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. You can reach us in chat. If you care about more episodes of this podcast, you can also find links to all of our podcast platforms at 80bitpodsmash.com with Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and any other platform you would like. If we are not somewhere you want us to be, let us know and we will put ourselves there. But 80bitpodsmash.com, twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash are your two big websites to go hit to find all of our content and to interact with us in all the meaningful ways you would like to do so.
Woo woo! All right, so tonight our main topic, like I said, is a follow-up on the Blizzard sexual harassment lawsuit allegations, and we will recap for those if you're just joining us. If this is your first episode, or if you missed the episode or skipped the episode on Blizzard and want to hear it all, we are going to talk first about what we're talking about. What happened?
What is going on?
So, Termite, do you want to do a quick summary of what happened, when, and how, and where?
I don't know the exact dates anymore, but
it was like late July. Yeah, it was late July. It was like 3 weeks ago from when we're recording, probably 4 weeks ago from when this episode airs.
Scroll up at your feed for our podcast and you can find the Blizzard episode that we did. It was a bonus episode live show all about it as it was happening. But the state of California issued a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard for allegations of sexual harassment and a toxic workplace. And it violated a whole bunch of laws. And so a lot of stuff has happened since then. There was a walkout of employees. There have been people fired. There have been a whole big shift. We're going to talk about the fallout, but the details of a lawsuit and the things that were happening at the time in late July are all documented in that podcast. So please go catch up on all of that. So what we're going to talk about now is the
things we covered were sort of some of the immediate statements of both Blizzard competitors, former partners, former colleagues, and former employees, leadership. And we also covered the statements made by the initial statements made by Blizzard regarding the harassment suit. Mm-hmm. So since then, some things have happened. So we're gonna recap kind of what's happened since our last episode. You can, like Termite said, you can go more of a deep dive into the initial round of happenings in that episode. But we're gonna kind of cover what's happened since. So since we first covered this story, what's happened since was one of the first things that happened since was the Blizzard announced that they would be removing in-game references to people who were referenced in the suit. So again, you may be wondering, what does that even mean if you're not a gamer or if you're not familiar with Blizzard's work? Blizzard and Activision, I don't know, Activision probably to a much lesser extent, but Blizzard in particular would frequently make homages to their own staff in characters in like NPCs in World of Warcraft, for example. The big example of this was there's two big examples of this, but one of the bigger ones was there was a guy on the story team named Alex Afriasabi, and he was one of the members of the quote infamous Cosby Suite. And there were lots of in-game references to Afriasabi because he was, again, one of the guys who was writing the stories and like writing quest stuff and making the NPCs. So there was a character in the city of Stormwind whose name was Grand Marshal Avriasabi, like literally his last name. There's a bunch of stuff. There's so much stuff. So all that stuff has been removed and renamed since. The other big example of this is there's a character in Overwatch named Jesse McCree. Like a playable character that's been in the game since launch. And in Overwatch, like characters' names are super important because they're like merchandised, right? Like Overwatch is a game that like generates merchandise. Jesse McCree is also the name of one of these guys in the lawsuit. Like he was, again, also someone in the Cosby Suite who also had texts and stuff going around. So like the character is literally named after this developer, and he is no longer with the company, as we'll get to. But so as of right now, nothing's been announced, but there's a big movement, of course, to get him removed. In fact, some of the like sportscasters or whatever in the Overwatch League refused to say his name, the character's name, out loud during the broadcasts and stuff like that. So we don't know if that's going to happen yet, but that's another big example of like, there's sometimes developers, especially in games this big with a culture like this, will oftentimes, pay tribute to the people who made the game within the game. And so for the problematic tributes, a lot of those characters are being renamed or things are being renamed, but not all of them yet.
Awesome.
But,
also note that Afrasiabi he left the company in 2020.
Yes.
So he's no longer there. But
and it was very like hush hush. Like they didn't make a big deal about it at the time because this lawsuit hadn't come to light yet. So there was a lot of like, in hindsight, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, they really tried to quietly fire him before all this broke. And now it's all broken. And it's like, oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
PC Gamer posted an article about it, but the message, which was posted on WoW social media channels and forums, says this, quote, "In the past days have been a time of reflection for the World of Warcraft team, spent in conversation and contemplation, full of sadness, pain, and anger, but also hope and resolve. As we heed the brave women who have come forward to share their experiences, we stand committed to taking the actions necessary to ensure we are providing inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment for both our team and our players in Azeroth. Those of us in leadership understand that it is not our place to judge when we have achieved our goals, but rather for our team and our community to let us know when we still have more to do. Over the coming days, players will see various references removed from the game that the developers deem no longer acceptable. Blizzard did not specify which, but 2 NPCs related to Afrasiabi are likely candidates. Over the past week, players have also highlighted other troubling areas of the game, including a quest where players capture and torture a harpy, a sentient half-woman, half-bird creature, for information before deciding to either release or murder her. Quote, "We know that in order to rebuild trust, we must earn it with our actions in the weeks and months to come," Blizzard said, "but we go forward knowing that we share the same vision as our community about creating a place where people of all genders, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and backgrounds can thrive and proudly call home."
But it's cool. You can probably still torture a bunch of male, masculine-looking orcs or something.
That's fine. I don't care.
Maybe just get rid of all the torture references in the game. Probably not. Probably not conducive to a healthy culture and community if that's what you're trying to do. I don't know.
But anyways, this is actual action. These are things happening in their games, and if it does affect, like if they do the Overwatch thing, that affects their merchandise, that affects their bottom line, that affects backtracking. There's a lot of work going in there. It's not easy to just change game assets for this. So we're talking.
They're
about
very lucky because this particular character, Jesse McCree, it's been noted in the lore that that's an alias. Anyways, it's not his real name. So they can just reveal his real name. Yay! 2 birds with 1 stone, right?
Yeah.
But
it's
nevertheless,
out of order in your notes. But speaking of Jesse McCree, Diablo 4 game director Luis Barriga, lead designer Jesse McCree, and World of Warcraft designer Jonathan LeCraft were let go from Blizzard.
Yeah, well, that was chronologically that was later than way later, the removals. Yeah.
So we'll circle back to that, but just so you know, like even the namesake is gone, and someone else as well. So more changes are happening over at Blizzard. But
yeah, I mean, I'm happy with them removing the. I'm fine with them removing the problematic like homages, tributes, because those are just silly things anyways. If you're sanitizing the in-game like quests and stuff like that, like I don't know, I don't really care all that much. It's not that big of a deal if they want to remove problematic quests, but I'm like, there's a lot of problematic stuff. It's a game about war. Of course there's problematic stuff, right? Yeah. I don't know. A character freaking commits genocide. Are you just going to erase the entire expansion about genocide because genocide's wrong? Like, no, it's a story. It's artistic.
Yeah,
it's meant
well,
to
it
tell
depends
a point.
On what's like being glorified and what's not. It's the intent, right?
Yeah,
so you have this quest where like the player is tempted to do this horrible thing to a harpy. Like there's no reason to have that in there. It's not like an NPC is doing horrible things to a harpy and you're left to hate that NPC. It's like, no, the player's doing this. It's different. Yeah. So it depends on the story you're trying to tell and the intent and what you convey out of it.
Freaking what is it? Call of Duty lets you shoot up an airport, right? Like that.
But that was so visceral in understanding terrorism and like putting people's perspective and eyes on like the horribleness of what it takes to in shootouts in a time in America where there was shooter after shooting after shooting after shooting, which doesn't seem like it ever has gone away, except for like the moment COVID goes away, there's more shootings. And like that is a thing that is so tied to American culture that globally people in America think like it's a risk to get shot in any public location. And rightfully so. It's a terrible situation. But that's what the game was trying to expose. And it's the Fallujah game, the 6 Days in Fallujah, they're also trying to do the same thing. And they're met with a whole lot of pushback as well. It's a whole ethical thing. I get it. But like, it's one thing to try to show someone or like expose or even like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's advocate for change in the world by showing someone the problems of what they're causing are, if that makes sense. Like,
sure. Right. It's one thing to artistically, it's the difference between portraying something realistically as horrible versus just flippantly doing something because it's right. No, I get you. I get you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so I think Blizzard falls into that fault, and they're changing that, which is great. So what's the next thing? Yeah.
So the next big thing kind of chronologically to happen was Bobby Kotick finally made an official statement. So the CEO of this freaking company made a statement like a week later, or a little bit more than a week later. So this came out July 27th, 2021. His statement was it was a letter to the employees, I think, but it was made public. So it was officially effectively a public statement. He said, "This week has been a difficult and upsetting week. I want to recognize and thank you all who have come forward in recent days. I appreciate your courage. Every voice matters, and we will do a better job listening now and in the future. Our initial responses to the issues we faced and to your concerns were, quite frankly, tone deaf. It is imperative that we acknowledge all perspectives and experiences and respect the feelings of those who have been mistreated in any way. I'm sorry that we did not provide the right empathy and understanding." I'm going to skip some of this stuff because it is just the kind of stuff you'd expect. "We are taking swift action to be the compassionate, caring company you came to work for and ensure a safe environment. There's no place anywhere at our company for discrimination, harassment, or unequal treatment of any kind. We will do everything possible to make sure that we improve and build on the inclusive workplace that is essential to foster creativity and inspiration." So here's some of the important content of this that I want to highlight here. So Bobby Kotick continues and says, "I have asked the law firm Wilmer Hale to conduct a review of our policies and procedures to ensure that we have and maintain best practices to promote a respectful and inclusive workplace. This work will begin immediately. The Wilmer Hale team will be led by Stephanie Avakian, who is a member of the management team at Wilmer Hale and was most recently the director of the United States Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Enforcement. We encourage anyone with experience you believe violates our policies or in any way made you uncomfortable in the workplace to use any of our many existing channels for reporting or to reach out to Stephanie. She and her team at Wilmer Hale will be available to speak for you at a confidential basis and can be reached at blank. Your outreach will be kept confidential. Of course, no retaliation will be tolerated." So he goes on. Right. Now, let's stop there. We'll tackle the rest of his statement there.
Highlight one aspect of Bobby Kotick's context. Bobby Kotick is the CEO of both Activision and Blizzard.
Right, the Activision Blizzard conglomerate.
He's not in the Blizzard world, so to speak, because Blizzard is only one leg of other things. So just to give you an example, Call of Duty consists of Infinity Ward, Raven Software, Sledgehammer Games, Toys for Bob, and Vicarious Visions, both for Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and there's a million other like Swordfish Studios and Bizarre Creations and Infocom, and there's a whole bunch of other studios that he is the head of, or at least overseeing, as all of these development studios are under the blanket of Activision Blizzard. So where we will talk about later, Alan Brack, who is head of Blizzard, the Blizzard president specifically, this is Bobby Kotick, who is one level higher, who is like the umbrella over both Activision and Blizzard. He has one level of like abstractness away from what's going on at Blizzard. And California is suing Activision Blizzard specifically for the problems within Blizzard. So
I think they're suing them. I think they are also hitting the entire company. Like
they are. Well, yeah, because they're together. Like, one is the same as the other. So it is Activision Blizzard.
Blizzard is the one that's been getting a little bit more PR about it. But
because their development studios within Blizzard are the ones that are the problematic studios. So they're the ones that are like dealing with this more on the ground than Bobby is. So yeah, sorry, now go ahead.
Right. Okay. So the big thing here, I mean, obviously it is what you would expect the statement of a CEO to officially be once crap hit the fan, right? Like it's got all the great sounding stuff, of course. Coming from the source, you have to like, but for people who are familiar with the source, Bobby Kotick himself, I mean, the man himself, not only is he just a stain on this bar. Okay, this is my opinion here. I'll be very clear here. This is my personal opinion. Not only is he a stain on the video game industry for the way he has just monetized the crap out of beloved franchises, but this is a man who himself, back in 2007 or 8, I believe, lost a sexual harassment lawsuit. A woman came forward and said that he sexually harassed her, and he lost. So as far as the eyes of the law are concerned, this is a man guilty of sexual harassment himself. And so this is the guy leading the company. Like, his words mean very little to me. In addition, his intentions are made very clear by that announcement that we just covered, the hiring of the law firm Wilmer Hale.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Wilmer Hale is, as came out very soon after his statement, Wilmer Hale is a law firm that specifically touts their pro-corporate, anti-union, union busting stuff. I am looking at their website now, and they've, I think, removed references to their union busting stuff since then. It's been a couple of weeks, so I can imagine they removed that from their website. But other journalists have pointed out that this law firm is famous for coming in and breaking up unions. There are other connections to Blizzard and Activision staff. Whether those connections are meaningful ones or not, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is, he's basically we're hiring someone to review all of our processes. Please come forward to them if you have any problems. But also, this is a union busting organization, so of course it's this is so self-serving. They're hiring a law firm to come in and make sure that their employees don't unionize.
Yep.
It's very self-serving. It has very little. The statement that he's made has very little to do with actually caring for his employees, despite the fact that it's worded to seem like such.
Lots of words.
Yeah. He goes on, so I'll pick up where I left off. He goes on to say that we are committed to the long-lasting change. Effective immediately, we will be taking the following actions. Employee support will continue to investigate each and every claim and will not hesitate to take decisive action. I'm going to skip some of this stuff. Listening sessions, we know that many of you have inspired ideas as to how to improve our culture. We'll be creating safe spaces moderated by third parties for you to speak out and share ideas for improvement. Personnel changes, we are immediately evaluating managers and leaders across the company. Anyone found to have impeded the integrity of our processes will be terminated. Hiring practices, earlier this year I sent out an email requiring all hiring managers to ensure they have a diverse candidate slates for all open positions. In-game changes, we discussed those already. Your well-being remains a priority, and I will spare no company resource to ensure that our company has the most welcoming, comfortable, and safe culture possible. You have my unwavering commitment that we will improve our company together, and we will be the most inspiring, inclusive entertainment company in the world. Okay, so, breaking down some of that stuff, I can't speak for what has or hasn't happened in that space. I can say that personnel changes have been happening, which we will hit on. So,
yeah, a day after that statement was issued, there was a Activision Blizzard employees walk out of work to protest the rampant sexism and discrimination. So even though the leadership is addressing this, the workers are like, nope, we're still going to walk out. I know the walkout was planned prior to Bobby Kotick's statement, but they continued to commit to it. So reading The Verge's article by Zoe Schiffer, probably butchering that name, go give them a click. Wednesday morning, hundreds of Blizzard employees rallied outside the company's main campus in Irvine, California to protest the company's handling of sexual harassment and discrimination charges. They're asking the gaming studio to agree to 4 demands, including ending mandatory arbitration in all employment contracts. Until these demands are met, we won't stop fighting. The move comes after the California department was alleging the company had pervasive frat boy culture, which we've covered that. At the protest, employees stood shoulder to shoulder across 2 city blocks, holding signs that read, send the frat boys back to school, and the women in the video game industry deserve a safe place to work. The energy was hopeful, almost light, despite 80-degree heat. There were no protest chants, just chatter among colleagues. Around the corner, organizers had erected a tent for protesters, complete with water and snacks. And there was an update to that, stating that all of those walkouts were going to get paid. So they all got paid for the day, and that was another Blizzard action on their half. So, yes, Bobby Kotick's statement was vapid and empty, and maybe it was something that might mean anything at all with the whole, union-busting company lawsuit, third-party eyes on whatever, is going on there. But Blizzard employees staged a walkout. Blizzard responded with, we're going to pay you. And what else do you think about that?
I think that especially the walkout organizers pointed out that, Blizzard offering to pay them completely undercuts the message, right? Like, it completely is like, it's an attempt to try to be like, look, we're totally cool with this. We're sponsoring this, which is antithetical to the entire point of a walkout in the first place. So I agree with that, number one. They did also, did you mention the digital picket line?
No.
They asked people, so those who aren't familiar with like union culture, there's this idea of the picket line. So if people are on strike, let's say they're on strike for a business, Walmart. Let's say Walmart employees are on strike. They'll establish what's called a picket line, and they will ask the public not to cross the picket line. What that means is, don't go shop at Walmart while we're protesting. It needs to hurt. It needs to hurt people. So Blizzard employees established what they called a digital picket line, which was to say, hey, while we're protesting, don't log into the games. Don't log into anything. Don't have Blizzard running. Just like if you respect this protest, then respect the picket line. Make it hurt. Was kind of the idea. So that was something that they established, and I agree. I did want to go over, they did have 4 demands that I wanted to...
what are those highlighted? I was looking for those.
I know. I was looking for them too in that article that I linked, and I should have made sure that they were in that. I'm actually looking at a different article, but it's fine. I'll just go through them real quick. The things that they wanted were end of forced arbitration for all employees. What that means is they have to sign contracts when they are hired to Blizzard that force arbitration as opposed to litigation. Those are legal terms, meaning arbitration doesn't happen in a courtroom. It happens in a room where they, basically are like, here's what we're going to do for you. If you have a sexual harassment complaint or whatever, we're going to force you by contract that you sign when you get hired. If you have something that you want to take us to court for, you can't. You have to arbitrate it instead, which just means come to an agreement. We'll settle with you or whatever. So they want to end that as a means to basically be like, you can't have that in contracts. That's BS. Like, if your company is responsible for something horrible, then you should be litigated for it. Litigation means taken to court. So they want to end those clauses in employee agreements because they are illegal, arguably. They want worker participation in oversight of hiring and promotion policies. So they basically want to form an in-house organization that double checks to make sure that stuff is diverse. So not something that the management team puts together, an entirely different basically committee formed of the workers themselves.
Yes.
Is what they wanted. The need for greater pay transparency to ensure equality. So basically they want everyone's salaries to be posted and what everyone's making, which, okay, I think that's fair. And then finally, employee selection of a third party to audit HR and other company processes. So this, again, is a sticking point here because instead of a third party, arguably, Blizzard hired, they did hire a third party, but was it a, unbiased independent third party? No, they're being paid by the Blizzard staff to make sure that the employees don't unionize. So employees wanted the important thing is employee selection of a third party. They wanted to pick a group to come in and audit the HR policies and company processes. Instead, Blizzard decided they want to do that. So all 4 of those things have gone unmet, as far as I know, as of now still. So those 4 demands have still not been met. I don't exactly know how employees are responding right now. Anything else with that?
There is a lot more. We're just giving you the 10,000
I know. We're trying to
there's a lot to this going on. Like gamesindustry.biz has an article published July 27th about this whole thing with the employees threatening to strike as it was happening that has all of the details. So please go, if you care about this stuff, go get educated about it and have conversations with friends and maybe on the internet, some discourse, polite discourse that's not condemning and destruction, but be able to know these things before just talking about them, because there's a lot more under the surface here than what we're touching on. I don't know if any of those demands have been met either. I do remember reading one of the 4 had been met, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah. That's the whole point of demands is these are the 4 things. If you don't meet all of them, then we're going to have trouble.
Yep.
Or we're going to cause trouble, I should say. That's what unionization has been about since the beginning. Cool. All right, I'm going to blast through these next 3 just so we can get to some of the other meaty stuff I want to talk about.
Later, Activision Blizzard employees walked out of work. So a week later, J. Allen Brack, the head of Blizzard Entertainment, stepped down from his position as president. The company announced on that Tuesday. Activision Blizzard told staff Tuesday morning that Jen O'Neill and Mike Ybarra will co-lead the company. O'Neill previously acted as executive vice president of development, while Ybarra led platform and technology at the company. O'Neill also previously led Vicarious Visions, which Blizzard acquired in January, and Ybarra was previously at Microsoft serving as corporate vice president for Xbox Live and Xbox Game Pass. He joined Blizzard in 2019. Quote, both leaders are deeply committed to all our employees, to the work ahead to ensure Blizzard is the safest, most welcoming workplace possible for women and people of any gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or background, to upholding and reinforcing our values and to rebuild your trust. With their many years of industry experience and deep commitment to integrity and inclusivity, Jen and Mike will lead Blizzard with care, compassion, and a dedication to excellence. You'll hear more from Jen and Mike soon. And then Brack had a statement. But my initial reaction to that was, why can't just the woman lead it?
Yeah, I was going to say,
have a team?
So I have two comments. Number one, why can't she lead it by herself? Has to have a man hold her hand, apparently. Number two, so a little tone deaf from Blizzard, of course. Number two, notice the trend in titles, right? So 2018, Mike Morhaime resigned. He was CEO. Activision Blizzard didn't replace him with another CEO. They replaced him with a president. And then 2.5 years later, the president has now stepped down, and he's been replaced with not co-presidents, but co-leaders. There's, if you think that those may just be semantics, they're not. In the corporate world, titles mean a lot and give a lot of indication as to like who's in charge and who's the boss. And the fact they went from, in just 2.5 years, they went from CEO, president to co-leaders. Yeah. It indicates who exactly is in charge. Is Activision Blizzard, I should say. So those are my two comments about that. But I called it. I just want to point out that I said J. Allen Brack is going to fall on his sword, and he did.
Yep, he did. He resigned.
Cool. Yep. So the next two things real quick I want to hit, there were, like you had mentioned, as of like last week, I believe 3 other employees were fired, and they weren't necessarily given reasons, though at least 2 of them you can trace back to the whole Cosby suite thing. And that's Jesse McCree and what's the other guy?
Luis Barriga.
No, Luis Barriga. Well, he wasn't part of the Cosby suite. Jonathan LeCraft. That's the other one. So LeCraft and McCree were both traced back to the group of sexual harassers, and Luis Barriga is not, but he's the lead. He was the lead director and one of the faces of Diablo 4's development. So if he was fired, I mean, maybe it was completely independent of sexual harassment, but there's some significant reason to believe that he may have been sexually harassing people on his team or at some point during his tenure at Blizzard. So that's a big, huge deal that the pretty much the lead developer of Diablo 4 is gone because of this. So, that's a big thing. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to highlight, because there's other stuff that's happened, but I don't want to spend too much time on some of this stuff with the woman, Fran Townsend. But the other big thing that's kind of happened that's been hurting Blizzard is the Overwatch League has had a bunch of sponsors leave. So those are T-Mobile, Kellogg, Coca-Cola is reconsidering their partnership with them. And I'm trying to remember, there's another one.
Cheez-It, Pringles.
Yeah, that was
IBM.
I think Kellogg. IBM, that was the other one. Yep. State Farm. So they had a bunch of sponsors that have now pulled their ad revenue from the Overwatch League. So I could see that just completely killing Blizzard's esports
or at least putting a giant pause on it.
Yes. Yeah, because that's literally money right out of their pockets halfway through the Overwatch League season. That's brutal.
Yep.
So cool. All right, let's talk about some stuff. I want to talk about some thoughts.
Yes.
So we're doing a follow-up, right? So I want to briefly address some of the things we talked about last time, which is, we talked about how, like, what are things you can do? And we talked about boycotting, right? We talked about how you can boycott their stuff. I am not going to say, I want to kind of make a disclaimer here and say that, like, by no means are we trying to discourage anyone from boycotting if that is what you feel like you want to do.
Right.
But there was a really interesting article that came out from Axios where they interviewed some female employees of Blizzard and asked the question, should you boycott and what is the value of boycotting? And the answer that they gave was no, don't boycott. And the reason is because these, again, female employees said that we are here trying to make a change, to make a better Blizzard, to make a positive change. If you boycott, you're basically giving Activision Blizzard, an excuse to fire us, to lay us off, right? Because if they don't make money, they're going to make more layoffs. And that's more chances for female or other employees who are trying to make a positive change to no longer be at that company and make a positive change.
Yep.
So that was kind of the crux of their statements. I don't know if you want to read those specifically or not.
I do want to read it.
Okay, go for it.
On Twitter, a Blizzard senior producer said that, quote, "It's a really bad feeling for those of us women who still work and fight daily at said company." She added that when people aren't buying the company's games, this affects profit sharing and her potential bonuses. The impact of this lawsuit might mean that in March, when my newborn goes into full-time childcare and my maternity leave ends, I might not get the bonus I need to pay for that childcare. What they're saying, some Activision Blizzard employees tell Axios that boycotts may do more harm than good. A current employee says that while they understand the reasoning behind it, losing money will catch the eye of executives and shareholders, forcing them to take action. It doesn't actually work that way. Quote, "It's harmful to the people who work there, who pour their lives into the game and are determined to make AB Studios and all the games studios, frankly, better places. They said, we can't fix these problems if we're unemployed, and we can't elevate women if we're boycotting all of the work they've done and are doing." So if a critical mass was reached, it's more likely to result in layoffs on the dev teams than any change in opinion or composition at the top. Games like Red Dead Redemption 2 are built through intense cycles of crunch, yet go on to dominate awards with no mention to those work conditions. That's like unethical labor practices built into many aspects of the game industry. So the article goes on to talk about all those things, like boycotting Pokemon Go over changes made to the game. Yeah, so like some of these things are what we want to see, unethical labor practices, of course, but what with Blizzard specifically and the allegations set forth and the animosity the culture of Blizzard has put against women, it's deep because
it is. It's hard. And so that's why,
them.
and that's part of the reason why we wanted to bring this entire thing up again, is because we wanted to talk about this idea of the boycott and it, does it have value? Should you boycott? Like, is that the right thing? And, it's hard for me because, it's hard for me, and we'll talk sort of about personally, but like it's really interesting because it is so much more complicated than just like, oh, the company's doing something wrong, don't give them your money.
Right.
That's fair, but like that also affects the people who make the game that don't make the decisions that are the bad decisions, right? And those people may be actively trying to change things, and you're basically shooting them in the foot and their ability to do so. It's like, because again, the money goes into the pockets of the shareholders at the end of the day, but also those shareholders do pay their employees and give bonuses. And that money does, again, say what you want about trickle down Reaganomics. I'm not a big fan personally, but there is still some truth to that. Like, there's a nugget of truth in there, which is, yes, people still get paid and people still stand to benefit that are doing the right things and making good decisions and doing quality work on those games. But I'm not going to sit here and say that like it's wrong to boycott personally, because at the end of the day, like that's up to the individual. Like, and that's up to, what I'm wrestling with is like, at the end of the day, you're still putting money in the shareholders' pockets and you're still putting money in the CEO's pocket. And like, is it right? Like, can you stomach that as a player? And that's up to you. And I don't know where I'm at right now, but like, it's a really interesting conversation there of like, how effective is a boycott? I mean, we've never really seen a massive boycott do anything in the video game industry.
Right.
Like, have we? Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I don't think. Like, I mean, I guess maybe the closest thing would be like the Battlefront thing.
Yeah.
Making positive. They lost enough money and they lost enough PR that like they did make positive changes to that game, but it also still made a boatload of money. And EA is still around. You know what I mean? Like, I've never seen a boycott like genuinely threaten a company's existence.
In the video game industry.
In the video game industry, yes, correct.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Any other thoughts on boycotts?
Yeah, it's what else can we do as consumers? Like, we're a small podcast. We have somewhat of an audience, 100, 150, maybe 200 episode downloads a week. And so we love our audience. We love the attention we get. But if we're talking about this here on this show, what else can we do? Like, what can you, Penguin, and what can Termite do day to day? If we don't boycott, what else do we have? And that's the biggest question.
Right. And we also talked about that on this last episode. And briefly, just again to recap, you can totally like support politicians who will crack down on these kinds of things, who crack down on labor law. Support video game unionization is something that's a very tangible you can do. If you aren't a big fan of unions, still support either laws that protect employees like this, or just in general, like, sponsor just sort of healthy cultures in the video game environment. Obviously, speak out against harassment that you find in your life. And we also talked about in the last episode that we covered about this, there are some people whose livelihoods revolve around Blizzard games and they can't just boycott. and move on to another game or whatever without having to significantly take a hit in their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, they don't have the choice. They can't just boycott, or at least not easily boycott. It's a lot more painful for them to do so than the average Joe who's just not going to get to play their favorite game. So I don't know. Is that a good segue into where are you at personally on this issue?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so that's our final question that we're going to end here on is, where are you, Termite, and me, Penguin? Where are you personally on this issue? Do you intend to continue boycotting, or do you think Activision Blizzard is going in the right direction, or do you think they're just going to weather the storm?
So where I'm at now, I'm in the middle of a boycott. I mean, it started with Blitzchung in Hong Kong, and that has never been talked about since, and it never will be. So that's never going to be turned over. What has turned over is a lot of executive people, and a lot of people in power have been removed from Blizzard in various different stuff. Like the head of Diablo 4 is gone. The president of Blizzard is gone. So there's different aspects of Blizzard that have now been changed, and I kind of want to see where they go and what plays out from all of this, because even though all of the PR speak and the C-level executives like doing their speeches and their stuff and like all the things seem vapid and blank, like literal stuff has changed. The people that work at Blizzard who have boycott or has walked out and had the 4 demands, and like none of those things really met, and the responses have just been like lukewarm and kind of like, we're bringing in this company to be a third party on like exposing all these things. If there is more eyes on the company that's third party, be it's a company that wants to bust up unions and doesn't support unionization and like might be a problem for long-term growth, the fact that there's third party eyes on the company is a good thing. Like there's a whole organization of people that are now investigating Blizzard, which is good. And like I said, there's leadership changing all around. So the boycott is kind of in a giant question mark spot for me. I don't know until things play out.
Settle a bit,
where like, let's see where the dust settles and see where they're at. If there are employees within Blizzard that are saying like, yeah, go ahead and like, it's okay to partake of Blizzard games. Like maybe Diablo 4 will be the first litmus test for me to figure out like, what's the reviews, how's the game received, and what's the state of Blizzard at the time of its release. And maybe that's when I jump back in. Like, I have zero intention to ever play World of Warcraft again, because to me that ship has sailed.
No, me too.
And Warcraft 3 Reforged, which I was super excited to play, was a flop, and like I'm disenfranchised from. So the only things left are maybe Diablo 2 Resurrected and Diablo 4. Now Diablo 2 is Vicarious Visions, and as far as I know, that studio itself is okay. Like there's been sexual allegations coming out of Vicarious Visions. They've been a development company for years. They did the Spyro remakes, and they were awesome. So and they did Tony Hawk, right, which have been great. So I don't know if that culture of that company is something worth boycotting or not. And so maybe I'll give Diablo 2 a chance. So it's all just kind of like in the air right now. I'm not super excited to run back to Blizzard and like, okay, I'm going to re-up my subscription of WoW, and like I'm going to get back on Battle.net, and I'm going to play Overwatch and all this stuff. Like, no, I'm not doing any of that. So I'm just going to wait for the new releases. I'm going to see and keep my eye on the game industry and see what's going on in these companies, and really pay attention to the voices that can speak into what's actually happening. And so I have a Twitter feed that's full of game devs and journalist entries, and I follow them. And as these games come out, I'm not pre-ordering anything. I'm not committed to nothing. That's kind of where I am personally with all of this. I think Activision is potentially going in the right direction. I'm not 100% sure. It's all positive.
It's like they're doing some things in the right direction, they're doing something, and some things not. And they probably won't go 100%, but they're at least going to maybe go 35 to 65% of the way there. And so I don't, again, you can play a numbers game all you want and determine that for yourself. I don't know. And some of you might be thinking, and maybe rightly thinking, I don't know, that like, oh, are Penguin and Termite just flip-flopping because they want to play the games? Maybe, there's sort of this cultural attitude of like, oh, you should stick to your convictions and never waver from that, because that's what strong people do. And I kind of disagree with that. I genuinely believe that strong and intelligent people like will take information in and maybe change their mind if it's the right call. And
I've been watching The Good Place, and there's a lot of ethical like lessons going on in there. And one of them that I just recently hit was the fact that our ethics are determined by the context we're in a given situation, which is kind of silly to compare that to this. But the context changed. The paradigms have shifted. There's a ton of new things happening at Blizzard. They are not the same company they were when Blitzchung was banned that they are today, that there's different people in leadership and things have changed. So now it's time to reevaluate. And
sure,
I don't
at
think
least
anyone's going to think that
reevaluating.
we're flip-flopping. I don't think anyone's going to think that, we're
if
just
they do,
excited
it's
to play
okay.
new stuff. But if they can think that, then they should go listen to the context of our entire podcast, because I'm not running back to Blizzard by any stretch of the imagination.
Right,
Again, I'm not pre-ordering these games. I'm not committing to playing them at all on day one. I just want to see what the company is now doing, and I'm not as strict to say no Blizzard as I have been for the last 18 months.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in a similar spot, and I only brought that up only because like I do want to highlight the fact that if you too are like I'm not quite sure what to do, it's okay to change your mind. It's also okay to stick by your guns. You know, if you are just like right, you know, again, there is still. I'm not saying that it's not. Again, I'm not calling you stupid. I'm not saying that there's no value in just sort of being like, I've committed to doing this, and I'm taking in the information and still deciding to, you know, be unwavering in my conviction. Totally 100% okay. I do not fault you. For myself, I'm with you. I'm like, I think that is the statement that the female employees made about how this does harm, how boycotts harm them. I think that's valid. I think that's a good point. That's a point that I'd not considered. And so now I'm considering it.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. No pre-orders. Wait for reviews.
Yep. And listen to the voices that matter. Listen to the employees, the devs that are there. Listen to females who are talking about this. We're two white dudes like talking to a microphone. Like we have no stake and we have no perception that can relate to this at all. We're totally outside of this world. So listen to the voices that actually do have an influence, that actually have experienced this, who it affects, and like listen to them and see what they're saying. And that's all I'm saying. It's just wait. That's where I'm at personally. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to listen to those voices first and see where the industry leads Blizzard.
And figure out what your limit is, I guess, because, you know, it's only a matter of time until the next controversy, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and so again, how many more controversies is it going to take? On the contrary, on the flip side, pay attention to how they respond to each controversy. If there's another, because there's going to probably be another one. A company this size, they're going to continue to make mistakes. Pay attention to how they respond to those mistakes is important. You know what? It's kind of funny. After all of this dust has settled, I by no means love EA. But Lord Almighty, do I miss when video game controversies were just stupid things they said on Reddit in response to greedy microtransactions. Like, man, like we're what Activision Blizzard is dealing with is like, you know, workplace conditions that drive people to commit suicide. Like,
remember, there was a BlizzCon that was like, "Don't you guys have phones?"
Right, yeah.
Or I missed that. All have phones, yeah.
I missed
that
controversy.
Silly.
Yeah,
that
was
so
silly.
Dumb controversy compared to this.
Compared to this, exactly.
It has weight, where someone's actually driven to commit suicide
to kill themselves, exactly.
And it's terrible.
And literally causes harm to people to remove someone's light from this world. Like, that's awful.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, it was not so bad after all, maybe. No, they're still pretty bad, but they weren't as bad as this, right? So it definitely is a big conversation and something that I'm still weighing. But I've not committed one way or another at this point. And, you know, that may sound wishy-washy, but at this point, I'm just like, I want to see where things go. I want to see how the dust settles. I want to see if they do commit to making actual change.
Yep.
And then less importantly, but still important, what is the quality of the games they're putting out? Like, again, because they haven't had a great track record thus far. People are leaving
for a long time.
People are leaving World of Warcraft in droves, not just because of sexual harassment allegations, but because there also have been bad game, right? Exactly. So yeah, just Overwatch 2 has been delayed, and they've made really unpopular changes to the format. That's also causing people to be disillusioned. So yeah, we'll see how things go. And in the meantime, I'm not committing to buying Diablo 4, but I'm not going to 100% say that I'm 100% not going to buy Diablo 4.
Exactly. Yep.
So, all right, cool. Well, any other closing thoughts on Activision Blizzard?
Nope. I think we covered it all.
Ugh, what a mess.
Yep.
Be good to each other, y'all. Like, be the change you want to see in the world. I know it's super cliche, but genuinely, like...
Speak up against those who are being talked against.
Yeah, and you have to... And just be better, right? Like, just be better.
I regret this immensely. This is actually like a pain point in memory in my life. Years ago, I was in an environment full of white men who were talking about how it used to be cool to slap women on the butt. And now it's a whole thing if you can't. And I was a guest from out of town on work travel amidst a whole bunch of people that I don't even know. And I should have spoke up. I should have said something, and I didn't. And that is a perfect example of something small that we can do to affect positive change in our own workforces, in our own cultures, in our own little microcosms of wherever we are in our life. Like, don't let those things, I would definitely not let that slide today. But at the time, I was not the same person I am today because of things like this coming out and how I've changed. But that's an example of something small that you can do to like make the world a better place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And don't do what
happen.
Penguin would have done in that circumstance and run around and slap them all in the butts and said, "Did you like that? Huh? Did that feel good?"
I mean, that's not professional, but that could have sent the message. I mean, it's pretty effective. So, professionalism versus effectiveness.
Efficacy. Penguin's all about the chaotic neutral response to these kinds
that
of
is
things.
very, very chaotic.
All right. Well, cool. Well, we want to hear what your thoughts are. We want to hear what your responses are. Do you think that we are just the two most wishy-washy people on the planet that don't deserve to have a platform at all? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? We want to hear those thoughts and more. We want to hear what your intentions are towards Activision Blizzard. Are you staying the course? Are you reconsidering your boycott? Or are you just waiting to see at this point? All those, I think, are fairly valid responses. So we want to hear all of that and more. And Termite will once again remind you where you can share your thoughts if you have them, or check out more of our thoughts if you are curious.
The best place for discourse is Discord. And there's a link to our server and every one of our social media platform posts and show notes. So go to 80bitpodsmash.com to find everything you need to be a part of that community. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Word. All right, next week we teased that we would maybe be doing a topic on indie games this week, but we're going to do it next week. So we'll talk about indie games, the rise of indie games, the popularity, what indie games are, and the influence they've had on the video game industry. And we'll have you all listen to that and look forward to that next week.
Sounds like fun. So we will see you next week.